Hey everyone, and welcome back. It's Warline and Jack, as always. We hope that you are fine, and it's absolutely amazing to be here this week, especially that yesterday the final episode of Daredevil aired, and I cannot wait to talk about it. I'm super excited to talk about it. But first, how are you, Jack?
Hey, yeah, I'm great. Thank you as always for welcoming me into your world. And yeah, I'm so glad we got a chance to do this while the Daredevil finale is still kind of fresh in our minds because yeah, that was quite a finale. It definitely topped the season one finale.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's probably the best finale of any Marvel show so far, like MCU canon shows. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I mean, compared to, I mean, not to knock Moon Knight or anything, or any of the other shows we've got, but yeah, this one definitely hit it out of the park. It was kind of like it was one of those finales where, man, are they really going to do this, or are they just going to pull back at the last moment, like we see so many finales do? But no, they really went for something that's really game changing here.
It's great to see that episode 6 basically hinted at the finale, or
Yes,
more accurately, Matt forced the deal that he wanted to have with the Kingpin
yeah,
on him this episode, which surprised me in a way. Like, I thought that, he was giving him that deal in episode 6, and when the Kingpin refused it, it was like, okay, you're gonna go down hard, but no.
yeah.
They didn't go this way. And I think I was even more surprised when Matt was like, take the deal,
hmm
which is weird because you know that if Kingpin goes to prison this time, it would be the end of it. But Matt was like, no, take the deal.
Yeah, and I think that fits because now this is one of those things where I didn't understand it a whole lot initially, but then the more I think about it, the more I feel like it works because Matt cares more about New York City and he cares more about the people of New York than he does about his rivalry with the Kingpin. And he's got plenty of reasons to hate the Kingpin. He has got plenty of reasons to want to see him in jail. But if comes down to saving the city from the Kingpin's or goons, or, going after the Kingpin and taking him out once and for all, he's going to pick the city because that's who Matt Murdock is. He chose the city and the people over doing something he couldn't take back against Fisk. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I see why he did what he did. It's very Catholic of him when you think about it.
Absolutely. And I think that, it's a good way to keep the Kingpin around because,
Yeah.
the more you take these characters, the more you make the villains do a lot of redeemable stuff and
hmm
moral legal stuff. And when they are human, you can't truly use them anymore,
hmm
especially if you end up imprisoning them.
Yeah.
So with this, it's like, okay, we're gonna keep him around. Let's see him next season and, whatever else he might appear, which is awesome to see, honestly.
Yeah, and actually, I think that is the right call because the Kingpin story is really it's not over, and it should not have ended in this series because losing Vanessa is going to force him to be a different kind of Kingpin. And I think that I want to talk a little bit about that last scene with him on the beach because if you just watch it and take it at face value, like, oh, he's got his freedom, he's on a beach, he looks like he won, but just look at his face. Look at the way Vincent DeFoto, he's depicted in that moment. He's not happy. He doesn't think he triumphed. He looks like that is the face of a man who lost. And then contrast that with that final shot of Matt in jail. He smirked, he smiled. And I'm thinking, he knows. He definitely feels like, yeah, he won on some levels. He saved the city. Fisk is going down as a criminal and someone who can never hold that kind of power again. I think that was a great end sequence there. No one said anything, but no one needed to say anything. It all conveyed the perfect message in a sense.
Yes. And surprisingly, it's a happy ending for Matt. If you told me 2 days ago that the ending would be Matt in prison,
Yeah.
I would be like, what are we doing here? But now it makes sense. And I don't feel like it's that type of cliffhanger that
Yeah.
makes me hate the show or makes me on the edge of my seat waiting for next season. I'm
Yeah.
of course excited about next season, but
Definitely.
if you end the show right here, it's a great ending,
Yeah. Yeah. It also ensured that Karen Page is free. That's another bonus. He didn't just save the city. He made sure Karen Page doesn't go to jail. She faced no charges. She's okay now.
She's not dead.
But she's not dead either. And that's for Matt, that's just a bonus, because that's why I think he was smiling, because he knows he got more than I think than definitely more than Fisk did.
Absolutely. I think that if you really think about it, like what we were talking about last episode and the episodes before, as we were discussing this season, the Kingpin loves two things. He loves Vanessa, which is obviously not a thing, and he loves power. And he loves
Yes.
both. Even if he
Yeah.
has his money and his quote unquote freedom,
Yeah.
he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care about anything he has anymore because he lost the
Yeah.
two things he cares about.
Yeah. Like it's another. Yeah. Like I said last time, Fisk almost never talks about money. That doesn't seem to motivate him as much as power does. He can have millions of billions of dollars, but if he has no power, he's not. That's not tenable for him. And you
Yeah.
just know that even if he does, if he is like, even if he had enough money to essentially live on that beach for the rest of his life, he's not going to do that. The Kingpin is not wired like that. He's going to want to get his power back. And now that Vanessa's not there to hold him, not there to temper him, he's going to be even more dangerous.
Yeah. And I think that, we see this in this episode when they tell him that they froze all of his assets and bank accounts, and he didn't care at all.
Yeah.
Like,
Didn't react
he
at
was
all.
like, yeah, he was like, bring on what you have,
Yeah.
let me face it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
knowing the King, he probably has a backup plan for that, but I don't think that mattered.
it's not that it mattered, I think we said it previously, when the Kingpin becomes desperate, he loses, and that's what happened here.
Yeah.
I think that, like, the one thing that made him fall was the fact that he tried to kill the governor. It wasn't anything else. Like, because everything else we've seen him do this season, we've seen him do before in 4 different seasons. 4 Daredevil seasons and Defenders. So it's not something new for Kingpin. However, the government officials being against him, that's what, changed things this time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the thing. If he had gotten away with that, he would have had all the leverage. But the fact that he didn't, that essentially was a turning point that even he couldn't weasel his way out of it this time. That was like the last barrier, and he couldn't get through.
Yeah. And I love the fact that Bullseye intentionally left the assassin alive, because he would know that this would ruin the Kingpin.
Yeah. Yeah, can I just talk about Bullseye for?
Sure, the ending with Bullseye is awesome, and we need to talk about it in details, honestly.
Yeah, we could talk about that, but I just got to say this. Of all the characters this season, Bullseye probably had the most fun. You could tell just from that diner scene alone, he was the only one in this he might be the only one in this whole series who's actually enjoying himself. He seemed to have he was like having a blast just doing what he does. And that is very much in keeping with how he is in the comics. I mean, he's never done what he did just because of, for other reasons that he thinks it's fun. And he clearly enjoyed himself.
Absolutely. As you speak of that, I just read Fantastic Four number 10, which came out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, Wanda needs to aim where the Fantastic Four come back to Earth, and she chooses Bullseye to help her. And you can see the fun of, like, at his face. He's like, you may know magic, but I'm the best. He's basically trying to be Wolverine. I'm the best at what I do.
Yeah, that's hilarious, and it's true, because he is the only character. No other character enjoys what he does more than Bullseye, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so that we could kind of just talk about that final scene with him on the plane.
Absolutely,
I do feel like that is definitely setting up to. I'm pretty sure they're heading to Madripoor, and I think this is laying the seeds for him to essentially become the new Hawkeye of
Thunderbolts.
Of the Thunderbolts, or of Valerie de la Fontaine's team, because Hawkeye was useful when you need a scalpel rather than a hammer, and Bullseye can serve that same purpose, and Bullseye's going to have more fun too, and that's going to be a bonus.
Yeah, actually, like, while I was watching that scene, I remembered something. I don't know how it slipped my mind, but the idea that Luke was working for Charles and De Fontaine was not something new, because he was actually leading the Thunderbolts for a while, or the Dark Avengers. It just slipped my mind, honestly, and it's definitely there as more as an Easter egg than anything else. Yeah. And we'll see how things unfold for, like, the Thunderbolts in general, because while I know that Marvel definitely has plans for Daredevil, especially because like they just revealed that season 3 will be wrapping up filming soon.
Yep.
So we know they have plans for that, but for Thunderbolts, I think they will have, to wait a little bit. Like
Yeah, I agree.
after Avengers, and maybe they will plan it somewhere along the lines with like Black Panther and X-Men. So we're talking 2028, 2029.
I'm also wondering if Daredevil being in prison is going to somehow be mentioned in Spider-Man Brand New Day, because we saw in the trailer some of the scenes are going to be happening in a prison. So could that be where Matt is? I can definitely see Damage Control thinking, oh, this guy's dangerous. This guy took on the Kingpin. This guy has been the devil of Hell's Kitchen. We can't keep him in a normal prison.
And they know he has powers.
Yeah.
There's no way a blonde lawyer can do what he does.
Yeah, that they might work under that assumption, even if he tries to convince them otherwise. Yeah, I could definitely. Yeah, I wonder if because we saw in No Way Home, Matt Murdock, he was Peter's lawyer. They know each other, and there's a chance that if their paths cross again. Plus, we know the Punisher's in the movie too. The Daredevil's history with the Punisher. Yeah, that could certainly he could certainly show up, maybe in a major role, but that would definitely be a nice little bonus.
I don't think that even if he shows up, he will stay in prison, because we know that season 3 starts with him in prison.
Mm-hmm.
From the leaks that Michael Coulter had put out.
Yeah.
So for, even if he is in the scene or even cameos or like even has a major role, it wouldn't affect the status quo of the show, really. It'll be like, here's something he did, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will say I was a bit disappointed that Luke Cage didn't show up or get a chance to do much, but I'm glad that he kind of made his presence felt. I'm glad that they have him and Jessica together, and I hope that this is kind of lays the seeds for like the Defenders kind of be coming back into the picture in season 3. Maybe not in a full form. I don't know what they're going to do with Iron Fist, but I did see that. I don't know if you saw the actress for Elektra.
She's in New York.
Yeah, she was mentioned, so she might make a comeback, and that would be interesting to have bring Elektra back in the picture, especially since things with Karen Page got so serious in season 2. It's going to make things awkward for Matt, but we wouldn't have that any other way.
Yep. I think that, it's confirmed actually that season 3 will be like Luke Cage will be a major point throughout the whole show, and not just like this season where Jessica and him were footnotes in a couple of episodes. And they even talk about that in the Daredevil official podcast. They said that the reason why they didn't have too much to do was that scheduling was hard, especially because like when Marvel reached out to them, there wasn't enough window for them to like adjust the schedules and be available, because Marvel reached out to them around the time season 1 was ending. Like they were filming probably at this point.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see if there are any more leaks. I don't know, maybe this season 3 of Daredevil will lead indirectly to like a new season of Defenders.
Probably.
Yeah. That would be because we know the Hand is going to be in Spider-Man Brand New Day. So maybe one of the things that happens from there is the Hand becomes somehow even more of a problem. And it's one that none of those street level heroes alone could take on.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see how they're gonna do this, especially because we don't know anything about the Defenders post season 3 of Daredevil. Like when season 1 ended, we knew that they're working on season 3, writing season 3.
Yes.
This time we don't know anything. Some people presume that Daredevil is like season 3 is gotta be the last season. And I wouldn't want that, but at the same time, I think that it's gonna be like, okay, even if this is the last season, you're definitely gonna see Matt again, whether in movies, the Defenders, like you're gonna see them again. And honestly, I would love to see him like be in the theaters again. Like Daredevil hasn't been in a theater since the Ben Affleck movie.
Yeah, that's quite a streak. And just want to say one more thing about that Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. I know that the movie doesn't have a good reputation, and for good reason, but have you ever seen, like, there was a more extended cut of that movie? I think it was it was a director's cut, I believe.
Yeah, I actually never watched the theatrical cut. I only watched the
Okay.
director's cut.
Okay, yeah, because the reason I bring that up is because the director's cut it's definitely a little more interesting. If that movie definitely has more substance to it than the original, than the theatrical cut, and it kind of feels the same thing that happened with Batman v Superman, in that a lot of important stuff was left on the cutting room floor that would have made that movie better, and I wouldn't have made it great, but it certainly would have been better if it
Yep.
had had that extra content. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I think that for Daredevil, it could have worked if they like released the director's cut, since it wasn't that long. I think it was
Uh-huh.
2 hours and 30 minutes, something along
Uh-huh.
those lines. Whereas, like when you deal with Zack Snyder, I don't know why, but he can just tell a 2 hour story.
Yeah.
He has to tell it in 4 or 5 hours. Like
Yeah.
one of the reasons I dislike his cut of Justice League is that he basically told the same story of Avengers 1. Like Avengers 1 told it successfully in 2 hours, and he just told it in 4.5 hours or 4 hours.
Yeah, that's an issue that Zack Snyder has had for a lot of other movies. I mean, I've seen it happened with Watchmen. Like there are
Yeah.
multiple cuts of Watchmen, but it's like the longer ultimate cut is the most complete and most well done part of the movie. The same thing goes for Sucker Punch. I don't know if you ever saw Sucker Punch. Like the extended cut of that movie, it actually fundamentally changes how the ending is conveyed. And it wasn't super long, but it feels like whenever one of Zack Snyder's movies get edited, some of the most critical stuff ends up on the cutting room floor, and the movie we get isn't very good. I don't know if it's just him or if it's just editing, but he has the worst luck when it comes to editing cuts of a movie being, lacking.
Yep. I think I've discussed that with my friend who's not as like he's a fan of the Snyder movies, but he's
Yeah.
not a weirdo. And the thing
Yeah.
that we kind of agree on to an extent is that Zack is one of those creators who needs another director with him. Like, you know how Joe and Anthony Russo work, you know?
Yes.
Zack Snyder needs someone to help him with that because, he is great at visualizing scenes. Like, you
Yes.
cannot say anything bad about any of his movies having bad scenes in any ways.
Hmm.
However, as I said, he sometimes cannot see what he's doing, like, and he can tell a 2 hours
Hmm.
story in a 4 hours movie. And,
Yeah.
that's not good, for
Yeah,
anyone.
yeah, some directors are like that. George Lucas was the same way. People forget that the only like of all the movies that like the first Star Wars, he kind of had full control, but Empire and Jedi, he needed someone else to kind of rein him in, and it's because he didn't have anyone to rein him in that the prequels were so mixed, to say the least.
Yeah. And it's kind of ironic that the one time Zack Snyder got a collaborator on a project and it ended up being highly acclaimed, he got James Gunn.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you like, I would certainly love to see Zack Snyder do something, especially in the blockbuster scene,
Yeah.
but I would not love to see him do it alone. I like
Yeah.
bring in Zack Snyder, not Zack Snyder, James Gunn, Sam Raimi, like anyone who can, help him develop the movie in the right ways. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Zack Snyder has I believe that he just needs the right situation to really thrive, and he hasn't found that situation yet, not for a long time. And maybe he'll get another chance, but for now, I think he deserves more opportunities.
Yeah. I think that he sadly created this surrounding atmosphere around him that
Hmm.
is pretty toxic that Hollywood doesn't really want him anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yep,
He kind of
go
leaned
ahead.
into that.
Yeah, between his fans, and I'm not talking about the regular fans. As I said, a lot of
Yeah,
friends of mine are his fans, but like the people who attack people online, the people who try to say just the most inappropriate things about other
yeah,
people just because they don't like their content. Like, for
yeah,
instance, how many times have we seen people say that James Gunn is a pedophile? Like,
yeah, yeah. Most of that
why?
comes from Snyder fans. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like,
like they're not going to get the Snyderverse back that way. They just aren't.
yeah, and you like this is a weird step to take. Like we were here that you disagree with someone creatively about art, and that's your right. And
Yeah.
now we are here where you are saying the most egregious thing that
Hmm.
technically and legally can get you to jail and should.
Yeah, it's yeah, those the Snyder Cut fans were extreme. There's no question about it. The fact that some of those fans have now sort of become like like a bunch of like a troll army, thinking that they can bully their way to get the Snyderverse back. It's kind of creepy. That's the yeah. It's
Yeah.
not just. It is creepy that they are that extreme, and I don't want to entertain. I don't think I don't think anyone from Warner or DC should give them an inch at this point.
Yeah. I think Jim Lee said it years ago. He said that it was a mistake to release the cut at all, like in the first place.
Yeah, and I like the Snyder Cut better than the original, but I will say, yeah,
Absolutely.
the way it ended up getting released, I kind of have mixed feelings about it. If I had a chance to say if the cut didn't get released and it meant that that troll army would go away, I'd take that deal.
Yeah. And you remember, DC actually did something. I know people forget it now, but they actually did it back then to prove their own point, which is that they leaked the Snyder Cut a day or two before its original release.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened when it was like officially released on HBO, it didn't get
Yeah,
really any views because everyone pirated it. So they
yeah,
were like, okay, there are no fans. So like, thank you, Snyder fans, for proving us right.
yeah. I think that was a little. That was a little. That was kind of. I don't know. That's kind of what you call chicanery, or a little bit of you know, cunning might be a better word there. But I think that was the only way I think they could have justified saying, "See, Snyderverse is not viable anymore. We need to move forward." I guess it turns out for the better because we got Superman, we got Supergirls coming out. There've been rumors that we'll get a Wonder Woman casting announcement later this year. I can't really say much about the rumors, but yeah. So it's like this new DC universe is here. It's not going anywhere. At this point, if you're crying for the Snyderverse to come back, you're wasting your time.
Absolutely. I think enjoy your time, especially if you're a DC fan. Like, I know
Yeah,
a lot of people who are DC fans who like the
yeah,
Snyderverse who are like, okay, it's over. We kind of wanted it, but like, okay, this is still
yeah,
the DC universe. We're still gonna
yeah,
see what's gonna happen. Whereas the
yeah,
Snyder fans are not DC fans and they just want to
yeah,
impose themselves as DC fans when they
yeah.
are not. And yeah, that will
Yeah,
never work,
I don't
unfortunately.
know if other fan bases are like that. Even there are people who are big apologists for the Fox X-Men movies. I've heard them say, they don't want to see the X-Men in the MCU. They want the Fox universe to keep going, but none of them have even come close to becoming like the trolls that the Snyder fans are.
Yeah, because, the Fox people are just people who hate Disney movies. And,
Yeah,
I get it. Like, I understand them. I don't agree, but I understand it. But, they never go to the extremes that the Snyder
yes,
fans go to. Like, you will
yeah,
never see them call Chris Evans, a sex offender or anything
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so I do think that the Snyder fans are very much a unique case, and I'm sure that some of the old Fox X-Men fans are going to have their opinions once the MCU X-Men show up. Also, might be I know that they've been saying they've been trying to give a proper send off to the Fox. They've done that
Universe,
for
yeah.
years now. They did it with Deadpool and Wolverine. It looks like they're going to do that again with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, but at some point they got to say goodbye.
I think they will want, like, for good once we get the new X-Men.
Yeah.
Like, for now, we don't really have X-Men. Even if we get Jean Grey and Spider-Man, it will just be
Hmm.
Jean Grey. It's not the X-Men. And,
Hmm.
we're still, like, at least 2 years away from
Yeah.
getting the X-Men. So until this time, we will just keep seeing the Fox X-Men. And I think that they're doing it the right way because
Yeah.
the casting is the same, but they never really go back to the Fox universe.
Yeah.
Like Deadpool and Wolverine was a true send off to the Fox universe, the movies that we've all grown up watching.
Hmm.
But the versions in Doomsday are different versions, just as the
Yes.
versions in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
And the Marvels, it's presumed that the Marvels version is supposed to be the Doomsday version.
Yeah, that's been sort of the hint. But, yeah, we haven't seen anything from that since that post-credit scene. But I think that the fact that they now have comic accurate costumes. I would much rather see those than more those old black costumes. I know some people still have a soft spot for them. I never liked those. Those black costumes looked off. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I hear you. I enjoyed them, but they are of their time. Similar
Yeah.
to the new X-Men run by Grant Morrison, the
Hmm.
original X-Men movies, and even I read it recently, the Joe Casey run on X-Men
Hmm.
around the time with Grant Morrison. It was edgy, like it was the Matrix influence all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's true.
we are way past that at this point.
Yeah.
Like, we are in the comical territory. Like, as we've seen with Thunderbolts,
Hmm.
Fantastic Four, and Superman specifically, we are at the point of like, okay, we can go full comic booky with with these movies, and they can succeed, and people can love them and understand them. It's
Hmm.
not like the early thousands where you had to make everything real and dial everything back to make a
Yeah.
real movie with like a facade of the X-Men or a facade of Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think that them being a products of their times, and that this is like before Disney bought Marvel, it was kind of before the MCU kind of embraced the more comic booky aesthetics. You really couldn't get away from it, but even it's one of those things where because it's a product of a time, it just doesn't hold up as well as it used to. I can go back. People still widely regard X2 as the best of those Fox movies, but even that movie doesn't quite hold up. I mean, yeah, it holds up better than most, but I watching that movie, a lot of it just doesn't, as good as it is. It's one of those movies that you could definitely tell it's from a different time, and it just, even when compared to other movies, I don't think it works as well as it did when it first came out. But that's just my opinion.
I think there are two sides here to compare. So, does it hold up as a movie and does it hold up as a comic book movie?
Yes,
Because
good point.
as a movie, I think that X2 and a lot of the Fox movies, as well as, any superhero movie really, especially in the 2000s, they can hold up well as movies. However,
Hmm.
as comic book movies,
Yeah,
especially like in a
yeah,
post Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers Endgame world, like it's not the same.
yeah. That's kind of what I was getting at. I think yeah, you think you worded it better than I could have.
Yeah, like because I think I understand you a lot because we are
Yeah,
comic book fans.
yeah,
Casual people would see X2 and they would think that it's the best thing ever, and they are right, they're not wrong, but
yeah.
they don't know the characters, so they never, criticize the characters the way we do. Like,
Hmm.
give X2 to someone who doesn't know X-Men, and
Yeah,
he'd keep arguing with you forever that it's the
yeah,
best content ever and it cannot be topped. Then you can give him X-Men 97 and he will be like, okay,
yeah.
I can see your point. Because at that point, you would introduce him to something similar to
Yeah.
what you know about the characters, and he can start, analyzing the movie the way you
Hmm.
do as a comic
Hmm.
book fan.
Yeah. But even if they can, yeah, at the very least, X2 was a cohesive, complete movie. I could, yeah, but that's like that's more the exception rather than the norm of the Fox era. The Fox era movies, for the most part, they weren't none of the aside from Wolverine Origins, they weren't super horrible, but they were, I guess, mediocre was probably the best I could say as movies, not just. That's if you try to separate out the comic book angle. A lot of them were like this was because I got two people in my family who work on movies, and the way
Yeah.
they describe it, you can tell when a movie is kind of messy. And yeah, I could probably say I'd be willing to say there was definitely some messiness in those Fox movies. I don't know if you've probably heard the stories about how they weren't allowed comic books on the
Yeah.
set of the first X-Men movie, but they were snuck in anyway.
Yeah. Kevin Feige, of all people, would get him comics,
And I
which
think
is ironic to think about.
that's ironic, but very fitting when you think about it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a nice little a prelude of what Feige would eventually become.
Yeah. The best person to identify the two areas well is actually Alan Cumming. because he
Yes.
was asked recently about the dynamics on this set of Doomsday, and he is like, it's basically the same we're doing a hip movie the same as we did in X2, but the difference
Yes.
is that two directors are not creeps, and the other one was, everyone knows. So, like, that was Alan
Yeah.
coming. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact quote, but that was what he was saying. And, you can feel that throughout the movie. Like, Joe and
Yes.
Anthony Russo represent the new guys. They're the guys who did Endgame. They're the guys that work with Gunn. They're the comic book nerds who
Yeah.
knows, movies. Whereas Bryan Singer, he knows movies, but he's not really a comic book guy. And, the
And
less
he's kind
said
of a
about his behavior,
and is
the
yeah.
better.
Let's
Like,
yeah. Let's not. Yeah. I don't. Let's not invite any lawyers into the mix. But
yep.
yeah, there's a reason why.
He's not in the US
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So let's not mention his name at this point. But I also
Absolutely.
heard another funny story that I don't know if you've heard this one. Apparently, when Hugh Jackman was cast as Wolverine, he didn't know Wolverines were a real animal.
Yeah,
Someone had
I
to tell him.
I heard that from him. I can't remember which talk show he was on,
Yeah.
but he talked about it. He was like, I studied wolves and seen how wolves move, and and the people were like, there are Wolverines out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're fierce creatures too. I don't know if you've seen old clips of actual Wolverines.
Yeah,
They're crazy. They're like wolves on drugs.
yeah. But I think, it's easy to see where Hugh Jackman did not understand it, because even
Mhm.
as comic fans, we get that a lot. A lot of creators do not know what a Wolverine is, and they actually depict Wolverine as a wolf. So, like,
Yeah.
I can see where Hugh Jackman is coming from. Even in
Yeah.
the recent run by Saladin Ahmed, when it started, he was like, with a pack of wolves. Wolverine doesn't have any relationship
Yeah.
with wolves, but
Yeah.
okay, I guess,
Yeah.
it's one of
It-
those inconsistencies that
yeah.
stuck.
It's funny consistency though.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to how a lot of people just still don't understand how Cyclops' powers work.
Yeah, the punch dimension. I've tried explaining that to a few people, and the look they give me is always funny.
He just punches people with his eyes, like, let's just make it that simple, because it is that simple.
Yeah.
I know a lot of creators try to make it work, but they never do that. And some people
No.
just think it's heat vision, which, like, okay,
Nope. Nope.
he's not Clark Kent.
No, that's too Superman like. Yeah, that's not how it works. But yeah, that was always it's always a weird thing to explain. But I think the best way to sum it up was, I think it was an X-Men, the first episode of X-Men Evolution. Cyclops actually says he's packing a bazooka behind each eyeball, and that's all you need to know. You don't need to know the physics. Just go with that.
Yep. You honestly, I think that sometimes with comics, you just don't need explaining. Like,
No,
X-Men 97 did not explain anything about any powers.
no,
However,
didn't
you
need
can
to.
see Cyclops, jumping off a plane without a parachute, and he uses his powers to land.
Yeah,
If it was heat vision, he wouldn't have done that. But
exactly. Yeah,
you just got to witness it. It's the show don't tell approach, and that's
yeah,
the
exactly.
approach that always works well. And that's why a lot of shows also failed. I know it's due to budgets, but when you look
Yeah,
at something like The Flash, it failed. Well, part of the reason it failed in the later seasons is that it started to become a tell and not
yeah.
show because of they had no budget.
Yeah, that's when you don't have a budget, you do have to you have to tell way more. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the old, like the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie.
I've
That movie,
seen some scenes, yeah.
yeah, that movie was was made with so cheap. They had such a low budget. They literally had to tell, because they did not have the budget for anything else. I think even if adjusted for inflation, the budget for that movie was like 1/100th of the budget of Rise of the Silver Surfer. That's how cheap that movie was. So keep that in mind whenever you judge it.
Yeah, I think, I still judge art the way art is being told, but understanding the situation behind how it came to be always, like, it makes me understand the situation and appreciate
Mhm.
that the people did put
Yeah,
effort to try to do something even when they didn't have the
yeah,
means. However, it
yeah,
does not change the fact that I don't perceive their art to be very good. You
yeah.
know,
You can't get around certain limitations. That's just the nature of the of art in general.
Remember the Inhumans? The Inhumans show didn't fail because of anything with the script. It failed because they didn't have budget to do the Inhumans.
Yeah, and I think they had a showrunner that was notorious for, I think it was Scott Buck. He's also the showrunner who was responsible for he's the guy you get when a show is on its last legs. He kind of is. I don't know if there's a right way to describe, but they say he's like the lazy man's showrunner. Like
Yeah.
you do that to get things done, not to get it good.
Yeah, and we can see that because I don't know if you remember, but the Inhumans project as a whole was definitely Disney fighting internally, like Ike
Yes,
Perlmutter and
it
Kevin
was.
Feige fighting,
I
because
made a video about this.
yeah, it was a movie, then it became a show,
Yeah.
and then Disney pulled all the funds from the show, so they were
Yeah.
like, "We're not gonna make it," and then Ike Perlmutter
Yeah.
persisted, and that's why he got the cheapest people,
Yeah,
and not the casting, because I think the casting was great,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I think you could definitely tell that when they cut Medusa's hair, you're like, okay, this is definitely a cost saving measure. This has nothing to do with, they're not trying to tell a story. They're trying to save money. And if if the rumors about Ike Perlmutter's cheapness are true, totally tracks. The man took penny pinching to an absurd extreme. I can understand why to some extent, but if you want to make a quality TV show or a quality movie, penny pinching only goes so far.
Yeah. The whole situation has been messy. I think we talked about it a lot. And as you said,
Yeah.
you have a video on it, that
Yes.
people can check out.
Yeah, INHUMANS versus X-Men video. I talk extensively about what happened behind the scenes.
I remember watching that video, but I think I just remember the comic book aspect of it, honestly. This era is kind of fascinating to look at because, when
Yeah.
I read the Inhumans books recently, and, they're not bad. Like when you take them out of the things that happened during that era and
Mhm.
IVX and Death of X, and read just the runs, they're not that bad. They are okay, maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10 comics. And
I still think, it's one of those comics where it's hard to read them in a vacuum because you can kind of tell, even if you're coming in from the outside, that Marvel was really, really pushing the Inhumans. They're really trying hard to make. They tried to make this new character. I don't even remember the name. As if this was the hot new character. Still, I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but fans didn't respond. The only Inhuman character that had any staying power ended up being Kamala Khan, and she was kind of separate from the Inhumans, and she wasn't even supposed to be an Inhuman. Her original creator has said on the record they wanted her to become a mutant. Marvel forced her to become an Inhuman because this was at the time when Marvel was trying desperately to sideline the X-Men because they didn't control the movie rights. It was a frustrating time, but you could tell the agendas were not subtle. That's just the best thing I can say, and it was
absolutely.
Oh yeah, Mosaic. Mosaic was the name of the Inhuman they kept trying to push.
I remember that they gave him a solo by Jeff Thorne.
Yeah, and it was terrible. I read one issue, I'm like, this is awful.
Yeah, I think that, the ironic thing about that era is that it's not really an Inhumans era. Like, as I've read it recently, read it throughout, I've read everything from the beginning, the things that spun out of Infinity till Death of the Inhumans. There weren't really the Inhumans that people like up until the last 3 arcs. So up until 28, Saladin Ahmed was doing Black Bolt, you have Al Ewing doing Royals, and later Donny Cates doing Death of the Inhumans. But before that, you didn't really have the Inhumans. Like Black Bolt is barely he appears in 7, 8 issues in the span of 60 issues, and that's their king. That's one of their most important characters.
Yeah, that's like X-Men without Xavier.
Yeah, not even without Xavier. That it's literally the same as what the X-Men was at the time. Because if at the time they killed Cyclops, they killed Professor X, they killed Jean. The X-Men were not recognizable, and the Inhumans had the same situation.
Yeah.
But no one focused about on the Inhumans when the X-Men was being massacred. But it was the same situation. And the
terrible
editor
way to push it. Yeah, terrible way to promote a series.
You know what's the irony?
Yeah.
The senior editor on X-Men at the time, as well as Inhumans, is the Spider-Man editor.
Nick Lowe?
Yep,
I remember.
Check all of the credits.
Yeah.
He's the senior editor. I don't know how he got from those many feelings to Spider-Man. I honestly can't get it.
Yeah, I don't even want to speculate. So let's not. He has
Yeah,
to know people.
yeah.
So nepotism will do that.
I think that it's not about nepotism, it's about being a yes man. It's kind of like Dan Slott. And,
Okay, yeah,
in a
I can see.
weird way, that's the difference between Marvel and DC because, it's something I've spoken about previously. I think it was Ungeekable. DC does not like creators, saying bad stuff or being controversial in any way, shape, or form. Even if the creators are right on social
Mhm.
media, they don't want that press, especially, after losing creators due to this messy situation. Like you had them cut ties with Ethan Van Sciver, Chuck Dixon, most
Yeah,
recently, what's her name? The Red Hood writer?
I don't remember.
The one that made a mess about Charlie Kirk's death. Anyway, like,
Yeah, I think I know. Yeah,
yeah, so regardless of the names and what size they are on the political spectrum, it doesn't matter to DC. DC does not like being controversial, and once writers work for DC, you start seeing them be silent. Like,
yeah,
look at Dan Slott before working for DC versus now. Dan
yeah,
Slott barely speaks, whereas before working for DC, he was being intentionally toxic and he would be
yeah.
behaving
I saw his
terribly.
Twitter feed. I saw his Twitter
Yeah.
feed. Yeah, I haven't forgotten.
Yeah, and that's the thing about DC I love and I despise about Marvel because Marvel knows what their creators are doing and they just don't care. They will never care until it comes to something related to Disney. Like I remember
Hmm.
when Zeb Wells killed Kamala Khan in
Yeah, that
Spider-Man
was so
25.
stupid.
Yeah, Cody Ziegler came out and he was talking about Miles and tying into Spider-Man and all of that stuff. And he said that he said something to the phrase of Daddy Feige told Zeb to kill Ms. Marvel.
Yeah,
And that was the
that's
only
yeah.
time ever where we see Disney release an official statement saying that there is no such thing that happened.
Nah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, we don't buy it, but like, that's the only time Marvel would care about, shutting creators up. And
Yeah,
I don't mean shutting creators up in a negative way. I mean just not making asses of themselves online because, I love a lot of creators and a lot of creators are there to talk fun. I think like Scott Snyder, Dennis Camp, there are a lot of creators out there that want to talk about fun and comics.
hmm,
Whereas there are others who are just existing out there to, to be toxic to people and, fight with people. And sadly, those are the ones that make the situation worse for all of us. Just as the weirdos in the fandom make it for us. Like you and
yeah,
I would never go threaten a creator over, the death of Jean Grey, for instance, whereas some other characters will definitely do that. Some other people will definitely do that. So these guys create the negativity, and we sadly have to live with it.
yep. That's the world we live in, unfortunately.
Yep. But, I think it's getting better, and I'm enjoying, how things unravel.
Hmm.
I think that, creatively, we're getting a lot of DC, like great DC work because of that. Because, the creators are not focusing on social media. They're just focusing on, their jobs, putting out good content, and,
Hmm.
they're better for it. Like, I think Jeremy Adams is one of those creators. Like, he's the fun guy you can talk to online, or you could do that online. But at some point, some people online started hammering him.
Hmm.
And, he never really responded to anyone. And at some point, he just stopped tweeting. Like, his accounts are active and he still posts on Instagram
Yeah,
from time to time. But he never responds to people, which was not his thing at all. Like, I remember
yeah,
once I commented saying something on his feed, at least I'd get a like. And sometimes, you'd start conversations talking about comics, but he doesn't do that anymore. Why? Because people are bad, and to him, he focuses on his work. And part of the mandate that DC runs with is that you have to be professional, even when treated with the or when dealing with the most unprofessional people ever.
yeah. Plus, yeah, social media over the past like 10 years has just become a lot more toxic in general. It's never been easier to troll people. It's never been easier to harass people. It really has kind of made it difficult to be a creative for any company, but I agree. I think DC managed it better than Marvel does. But I do like that. I do like how some creators are more accessible. And as long as you're polite and you're uh, respectful, they'll return the curves. I did interact with Ben Percy on every now and then. I will, thank him for his work on Wolverine, on Punisher. Also, lately, Alex Packnadel, who's been writing the Cyclops solo series,
Yep.
he's been very helpful and responsive whenever because usually I wake up super early on when the new comics come out, and I will. You've probably seen my my feed during those hours. I kind of
Yeah, I know.
That's usually a lot of that is the caffeine talking. You get between comics, coffee, and it's early morning. Yeah, that's where a lot of that energy comes from, and it shows. Even back in the day, I don't know if you remember Cullen Bunn when he was on X-Men Blue.
X-Men?
Yeah, he could usually actually because I met him in person once. Usually when I would wake up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning my time to download the newest issues of X-Men Blue, and I'd usually tweet at him about my reactions, like, oh man, this. And later on, I go to New York Comic Con, and I talk to him. He's kind of casual at first. Then I mentioned my Twitter handle. He's like, "Oh, that's you? You're the 4 a.m. guy who's like, oh, it's great to meet you." I actually have one of the comics I got is signed. It got a variant copy of X-Men Blue #1 that he signed for me. That was a lot of fun. So just a little quick anecdote there about the meetings, Cullen Bunn.
Yeah, I think that, once you remove toxicity out of things, like creators are the best people to hang out with, especially when you're all just fans talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I never really talked to Dennis Kemp about his work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have interacted with him multiple times, and every time we just talk about comics in general. Like, I remember talking about Grant Morrison's Green Lantern and Hickman's Avengers. Those are some of the few times I've talked to him about stuff. Like, we never really got to discuss Ultimates, for instance, or even Children of the World. Like, it never came to that.
That's actually a nice transition. Want to talk about the Midnight announcement? Because
Sure.
I know we're kind of just spitballing a lot here, but we were talking about the Daredevil finale. Now we're talking about now we're sharing stories about the state of comics. That's kind of how our conversations go. But yeah, the big announcement that hit earlier today was Marvel is launching this horror line called Midnight. Immediately when people saw it, they're like, oh, this has got to be some sort of like response to the Absolute Universe. But based on what I'm looking at, the Bleeding Cool article that you shared on our group chat earlier, and it does feel like it's a bit more. It's not so much like a new Ultimate Universe or even a new Absolute Universe. It's more like a horror-centric universe, kind of like in the mold of Midnight Suns, which I'll definitely give it a chance. If someone like Ben Percy is going to be on there or Jonathan Hickman, both of those guys, I like their stuff. They've definitely been more consistent than most especially when dealing with
line-wide stuff like this.
Yeah, and also in more mature characters, those guys definitely they're skilled at that kind of storytelling. I'll give it a chance. It kind of depends on the setup, but I would not want Marvel to start another Ultimate type universe or even their own Absolute Universe. They really need to take a break from that before they could do something else, because the way the Ultimate Universe is kind of panning out, like earlier today, the preview for Ultimate Endgame #4 came out, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's still going on? I legitimately forgot about Ultimate Endgame. That shows you, how forgettable these past few this conclusion has been.
Because they delayed it so much, and I don't know why.
Between the delays and the fact that it's like a lot, like some of these series have been over for like 3 months now, and like why?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. I mean, I know it's not like when Mark Millar and Brian Hitch were delayed for so often when their Ultimates run, but this is like the finale, the end, and it's being so, and it's just so it's like unceremonial. It's like, we know it's ending, and it's just a matter of, is it going to matter? I mean, how much is it? We're already seeing the aftermath in Armageddon, and it's like, does this Ultimate use, does it really matter at this point? It's like the impact feels limited.
Yeah, I think we will see how things go. I still believe that we're not gonna get rid of this, universe. Like, best case scenario, they either resurrect characters or reboot it, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Flashpointed, which is possible.
That's possible. They have the Immortus engine, and that's what
Exactly.
changed the whole universe in the first place. But again, if they do that, I would really not want them to start a new Ultimate Universe with a plan, because like this Ultimate Universe, it had half a plan. You had Hickman and you had Camp. Everyone else was kind of just, we don't care, do your own thing.
Yep. I think that, I don't think that they will get rid of the universe. Like, they will definitely keep some things around. Like, they keep Peter married with the family and all of that stuff. They would definitely change things around to allow people to, tell different stories. Because the premise of this universe right now is unlike the absolute universe. It's about the maker. And so what happens when you fight the maker? The plot ended. So you need to start something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think once the maker story is over, that kind of depends. It really kind of depends on what, okay, now what? So the Ultimate series is ending. We have these Fallout events that Condon is writing. And we know these origin boxes have made their way into the mainline universe, and they're going to start creating these new characters. But that's just affecting the mainline universe. What else? Why else do we need to care? And the fact that we've had these delays, the fact that the impact is already kind of muted because it's out of order. It leads me to believe that again they only had half a plan for this, and it wasn't even the fact that it doesn't feel cohesive is kind of breaking the momentum it might have had.
Yeah. I think they definitely didn't have a plan because, the plan was to resurrect the original Ultimate Universe under Donny Cates, but that never happened because of the Donny Cates situation.
Yeah.
But
That's sad.
For what we've got, I think, it's cool that we've got it. I've enjoyed most of the stuff. We'll see how things go. And I'm excited for what happens next, because we know that Marvel knows that they have been aimless for a while in general. And Chip Zdarsky talks about that a lot.
Yeah. I think I've heard that too.
Yeah. And he is like, what's his name? Chip Zdarsky said that him and Hickman are the architects of the Marvel universe as a whole now.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever happens next, they will have some hand in it, and they are gonna streamline things. And even when they're not really controlling things, we can still see some things changing for Marvel, because like this week, for instance, we'll be getting the issue that talks about Inmate X. We haven't had anything about him since the Gail Simone run started, basically.
Yeah. I honestly, for a while I forgot about that.
Yeah, the last time they mentioned him was in Raiden Gray Malkin, when they were telling us that he is not Xavier, because if you remember the first 5 to 6 months of that, or maybe less than that, because of the 3 issues every 2 months that come out, so it's definitely less than that. They talk about him as to say that he's not Xavier, and that's just it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that and after that they really didn't mention Inmate X afterwards. Like
again,
was that just a red herring? But
it
maybe
definitely was.
Yeah,
it definitely was, because right now I think like we are 2 years in. They definitely know what they want to do, and we even see the same thing happening with McKay, because McKay just threw a lot of random stuff at the wall when starting, and right now he's gonna deliver on most of them in an event. Between the resurrection disease, that's not really a thing, or maybe is a thing, we don't know.
Yeah.
And we have the K situation. Like, I think they're gonna deliver on some stuff. Whether the quality becomes better or not, I will have to wait and see, I think. Like, we all have to wait. But, it's just, for me, it's sad because I expect a lot more of these creators, especially because I've read a lot of their work and I know that they can do better. Like, for instance, one of the things we talk about is relationships in comics and how Marvel Comics sucks and given us a lot of relationships. But, when you write relationships, and I'm not just talking about the romantic relationships, I'm talking about relationships in general.
Yeah.
Jed McKay has been one of the writers that explored that well in the Marvel Universe, one of the few who is capable of doing that. So when you give him X-Men, I have high expectations from him, because, that's the guy that made me care about the Moon Knight supporting cast, the relationships between all of them, including the romantic relationship between Tigra and, Moon Knight.
Yeah.
When you gave him Black Cat, he gave her a supporting cast. He gave her different love interests. He dealt with
Yeah.
drama a lot, same thing with Doctor Strange. Like, Doctor Strange and Clea were almost nobodies before
Yeah.
Jeb McKay. Yeah, like, not nobodies, but like no one really cared about the relationship. A lot of people actually didn't know about him because
Yeah.
it's one of those relationships that ended in the early 2000s and never
Yeah.
were mentioned again, truly. But
Yeah.
right now they have a lot of fans. Why? Because Jeb McKay tells a lot of good drama stories.
Yeah. I agree. It kind of reminds me a bit of like early to mid 2000s Bendis. He was really good at writing relationships too, more so than most writers. Some writers like they just write these characters like it's a superhero team, they're just heroes. Like it's the difference between I don't know if you watched Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon.
Yeah, some of it, yeah.
Okay, did you see the cartoon that came after it? They called it Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, I saw that as a whole.
Yeah, so the reason why I bring those two up is because Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which is widely praised, actually did focus on character relationships. You had really good dynamics between Hank and Janet Pym. You had some really solid dynamics between Clint and Natasha. You even had decent dynamics between teammates, between Tony and Captain America. And those dynamics were very well done, but they felt like not just like teammates, like family. Then
Yep.
move it over to Avengers Assemble. It's like they're not friends, they're not family, they're coworkers. It's like you get the sense that if they went their separate ways, they'd forget about each other within a week.
Yeah.
It was really frustrating because I've seen comics written like that, where the characters basically they're not friends, they're coworkers, and their dynamics are not cold but flat.
Yeah.
And some writers are better at writing those dynamics than others. Jed McKay, I agree. He and like Bendis in the early 2000s, they definitely had elevated that type of writing, and it's hard. Like there's no again, I wrote bad fan fiction. It is very hard to do, and it's even harder to do consistently. And that's why someone like Jed McKay gets paid to do it.
Yeah. But they can make it, and I don't know why they're not allowed to, because
Yeah,
a lot of the things that are happening with X-Men are mandate related. It's not
yeah,
really books related, because
yeah,
when you leave Jeb McKay to his own devices, I don't think that he will let X-Men go 28 issues, barely mentioning that Scott's family is from Alaska.
yeah.
You know, he would not leave things without, the mention of Jean Grey, except once every 100 issues. I think, like, if you left it up to him at this point, he would probably, like, easily integrate Jean into, into
I
his
bet he
book,
could. Yeah,
you know. And he has proven that he can write her well, like, as a character,
yeah.
and he is interested in her. I know a lot of people bring up Twitter and whatever creators say online all the time, but
Mhm.
Jed McKay is one of those writers who can separate what they like as people and what they can do as creators, and give us
Exactly.
great stuff. Like, I know he is not one of the people that like Gene and Scott, for instance, as a couple, but you know that when he's given the task to write them, he's gonna write them well. And he
Mhm.
respects continuity, that if you let him do what he wants or like explore, he will bring them in and he will write them well. Why?
Mhm.
Because one, he's paid to do that. Two, he respects continuity and storytelling. Whereas what's happening right now, it's a separation that's kind of forced. Like, honestly, I tried to find this a lot of times, but I don't know why it just disappeared. But there was something out there. I can't remember if it's a rumor or if it was Tom Brevoort, who was like,
Mhm.
the idea like of separating Jean and the X-Men is that they don't want to deal with the relationships with
Yeah.
like Jean and Scott as a couples. I can't remember. No, Tom Brevoort definitely said that in of his newsletter. He was like, if it was up to me, I'd never resurrect Jean, and they would be divorced and blah 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 blah. The normal Marvel
Mhm.
stuff. So we know that if it were up to him, he would divorce these two at least. But he's like, he can't do that because Marvel higher ups don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
what happens is
He
that,
has bosses too.
yeah, what happens is that he can do whatever he wants under, some team conditions. Whereas, okay, they're not divorced, but, they haven't seen each other in 2 years because we threw her in space. And after that, in the limbo, she's not used. Why? No one knows.
Yeah, it's no explanation. It's kind of a let's not say we did type thing. I don't know maybe they do have a plan for her, and maybe they did have a plan, and the plans were forced to change because um, I think we kind of saw that during the Krakoa era when Hickman, because it's already documented that Hickman did not intend for Krakoa to play out the way that it did.
Yeah.
After he left the book, like his plans were thrown out the window.
Even before that, actually.
Yeah.
If you read the books, you can see things change in his own book.
Yeah.
Like, not to take this into a tangent, but like I remember in the early issues, like issues 1 through 5, he mentions the Summers family as the X-Men. They are the X-Men team. But then you come to X of Swords and they're like, there is no X-Men. We've dissolved the X-Men when Krakoa started. That's when you knew that, okay, plans have drastically changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's common, but sometimes it's a little too. It's more obvious than usual. I kind of feel like the whole post Krakoa era there has not been a cohesive plan, especially when compared to like what DC has, or especially even compared to like the Avengers books. I mean, it really does feel like this is like a weird transition period where they're trying to set things up for the future. They don't quite know how to approach it. They need some kind of Hickman level plan, but Hickman's probably not going to be the one to set it. So it kind of depends on who's going to give them that plan, that vision that's going to streamline things. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's Jed McKay.
I
I don't
think
know if
it's
it's
Chip at this point.
or Chip.
We have it
Yeah, Chip
confirmed. Yeah.
Zdarsky. So
Yeah.
yeah, it really does sort of depend, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take. But we know the X-Men are coming to the MCU. Marvel has a vested interest in elevating the X-Men and streamlining the comics.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen at some point within the next couple years. We just don't know what form how it's going to play out. So I guess time will tell.
It's already happening, I know we don't have a main MCU team, but we do have Doomsday and we do have 97. It's already happening. I don't know why they don't want to focus on it the right way, Because the whole transition to this new era was forced by higher ups because of the synergy. They wanted to focus on X-Men, but they just, they gave the keys to someone who barely understands X-Men, who does not like X-Men, and he's like, okay, like, why? I don't know. Like, honestly, like, Jordan White was not doing better himself. Like, let's agree that Jordan White sunk the ship badly, but, you didn't give it to anyone better,
Yeah, there's a the transitions are always messy. They always happen in comics, but there are ways to make it smoother. Like I'm probably going to show my age when I say this, but the transition from Jim Lee and Chris Claremont to Scott Liddell in the 90s with the X-Men comics, you could kind of sense when Claremont was no longer writing the X-Men because his style is so distinct. But it was not super obvious. They still felt like the same X-Men. The tone was still similar. It wasn't as obvious, but it was still there. And now, whenever there's a change in creative direction, it's like night and day, and it's never smooth anymore. And DC has had the same issues in the past. I mean, they've kind of they're doing well now, but the transition between Flashpoint and New 52, the New 52 to Rebirth was jarring, to say the least.
Because they just cared about money at the time.
Yeah.
And, for the first time it was about money. The second time it was one person cared about money. The other cared about restoring the DC universe. And of course, I'm talking about Dan Didio and Geoff Johns.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can definitely see that, but it's just messy. And I honestly wish that they could leave it to these creators. And sometimes I wish that they couldn't leave the creators do what they want too much. What I mean by that is that Gail Simone is really good at writing the classic X-Men on her team. Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, etc. But once she introduced the kids, everything became about the kids, and you're like, nope, I'm not reading anymore. I'm like, that's the vibe. And that to me represents that Gail Simone is doing what she wants to an extent when it comes to the kids, but she is also constrained when it comes to the main X-Men. And I'm like, nope, let's change both of that. Throw the kids into the sun because no one cares about them. and give me straight, X-Men stuff. Because let's be like, the first arc, like right before Grey Malkin, that was really awesome. When you talk about, okay, the relationships between Rogue and Gambit and Wolverine, Nightcrawler, like,
Yeah.
it was good, and like it was really good. It was better than McKay's. I think like McKay had a hectic start compared to Gail Simone.
I will say this though, the way some of the things Gail had this in the early issue. There was one plot that I'm kind of surprised they didn't do much more with it. Like there was a mission was I think it was Jubilee who pointed out that Wolverine has like PTSD, and nothing really came of that. I'm like, it feels like why did you say that? And nothing really went there. I mean, it's kind of a weird aside that didn't go anywhere.
I think that's because Wolverine is more of a solo character, so
Yeah.
what matters is what to him is what happens in his own title. Plus, when you say that Logan has PTSD, it's just a Tuesday. Like we already knew that. Like no, like we already knew that Wolverine has the worst psychological, illnesses out there. That's nothing new, really. You didn't change anything, When you tell me that Cyclops has PTSD, okay, that changes things,
Yeah.
Cyclops is messed up. I remember in some of the early issues, they mentioned that he has OCD, but like nothing that he has is severe to have him have, panic attacks. Whereas Wolverine, it's just a Tuesday.
And plus, Wolverine's he's like 200 years old because he's not going to be normal. Cyclops, as crazy as his powers are, his age, at least in terms of his age, he's normal. And it's like it would be weirder if if Wolverine didn't have as much baggage. It's just a whole practical thing.
Yeah. I mean, like the whole situation about him being lonely when he is not and all of that stuff is because he feels lonely, which is true, which is something like it's something psychological, the people who are actually certified can, dismantle this in 1,000 different ways. And I'll let them do that. But, that's not the same for Cyclops, for instance, but, it's always been Wolverine. So I was not surprised when they did that. I was actually like, why are we like, the way I acted was like, why are we specifying what Wolverine has? Because, whenever, let me put it this way, whenever they try to specify what a comic character suffers from, they end up messing up because, even if we understand these illnesses well, we are not certified. And even the certified people do not understand them well. Like, I read a lot in psychology personally.
Yeah.
And my cousin is actually in the medical field. And we discuss illnesses and all of that stuff a lot. And the thing that comes up all the time is that even with our development as a human society, we still don't understand a lot about mental illnesses.
Yeah. And there's always you always run the risk of if you try to dig too deep, you're going to send the wrong message. You're going to convey it poorly.
Yeah.
That will sometimes it'll even feed into like negative stereotypes that is not productive, like at all. So it is something like they could have done something more serious with the PTSD for
Cyclops.
Logan or Cyclops because he was having these panic attacks for a while, and now that plot has seemed to have been dropped. It's just the inconsistencies. I mean, it's not like these dropped plots are like undermine the whole narrative, but it just kind of reeks of a limited vision. I mean, I know maybe Armageddon. You said Chip Zdarsky's. I think Marvel's kind of banking on Chip using Armageddon to kind of recalibrate things.
Yeah,
and maybe this the Midnight universe is going to sort of be like an aside thing that they can develop without having to worry too much about it affecting the mainline universe. Like that's what Ultimate was kind of functioned as, and maybe they want to keep that until they can like recalibrate Ultimate for something later down the line. But I am going to be keeping an eye on Armageddon because I'm not going to reboot the whole universe New 52 style, but at the very least it needs to lay a foundation so that someone with a vision can build on it.
Yeah. And, you can almost take it to the bank right now that Chip Zdarsky is the new writer of the Avengers, and that Wolverine and Spider-Man are on the team. So
Okay.
to some extent, you know that Chip Zdarsky will change mutants, even if he doesn't write an X-book.
Okay.
Because, you know, he has the keys to the Marvel Universe, and he already, like, he's writing the Wolverine miniseries. Wolverine is a main star in his Avengers mini in Armageddon, as
Yeah, I've
well
been
as the
reading
main
that.
event. Yeah, and down the line, we can all take it to the bank that he will be writing the main Avengers book with a similar roster to Brian Michael Bendis. So you'll have Wolverine, you'll have Spider-Man.
That was a good era.
Yeah, like, I think we are gonna go back to that. I definitely, like, he has Sue Storm on the mini. I don't think that should be on the main Avengers, especially with, like, Fantastic Four. That would be a lot of work to coordinate with, like, what she's doing in Fantastic Four and what she's doing, you know, on the Avengers.
Yeah.
Other than that, you can take that to the bank, you know.
Yeah.
They will do that. And, you know, going back to the mental illness masses of comics, I think that Marvel themselves should learn from not to do, like, from their past mistakes, how to not mess up characters with that. Because, you know, when you talk about Hank Pym, like, let's bring Hank Pym up. He is the one with the messiest history when it comes to that aspect. Because, you know, if you go back to the issue, for instance, where he became Yellow Jacket, and later when he got married to Wasp, they mentioned that he has schizophrenia, which is incorrectly portrayed. It's portrayed to be dissociative identity disorder, which is, I know it's a common thing that people mix up those illnesses, but then down the line, you got to experience a lot of different things with him between real and fake. Like, I remember one of the issues he had was that an ant that he was connected to mentally died, and it kind of destroyed his brain, which is in a way similar to Jean Grey. But I think this story happened, like, this Ant-Man story happened almost a decade before Annie was introduced in comics, the Jean Grey origins.
Yeah. Hank Pym's mental health has always been a bit of a character in and of itself. Going all the way back to, like, the early Avengers comics, he was the one character where they gave him the most unstable mind. Like, for a while he was seen as, like, they made him bipolar, but then they kind of let it evolve and make it clear that as smart as this man is, he is not mentally well. And that has kind of played into that's a big part of his story. I don't think you can separate Hank Pym is one of those characters. You can't separate the mental illness from the character. If he suddenly became, you know, perfectly, you know, sane, he would not be compelling. Probably wouldn't even be a hero. But it is, I think it's remarkable how he's one of those who's the most defined by his illness. It helps him be a hero, but it also makes him dangerous. He could be very villainous at times. We saw that in the Ultimate Universe, and I think he's one of the hardest characters to write, and any writer who can kind of balance that, I think, is definitely has credit in my book.
Yeah, I think that, you know, his issue is that, you know, it started as a DID, and then, you know, the fake stuff, and then for a while, Kang was controlling him or messed up his mind. And then it came to Jim Shooter, who tried to have him, like, say that he has depression.
Yeah.
That's when, like, the character, like, you started to see a theme with the character. Like, they knew that they want to go with the depression route.
Yeah.
So you had Trial of the Yellow Jacket, and of course you have the controversy. Did they slap his wife? Was it just that he was waving his hand and he accidentally struck her? You can go down that route. But, you know, that in and of itself destroyed the franchise. Like, that moment, and people bringing up that moment later, like decades later, it did not destroy Hank Pym, or it did not destroy just Hank Pym. It destroyed Janet. It destroyed Scott Lang. It destroyed the franchise and the family as a whole. Like, people always try to separate Wasp from Hank Pym, and some people are like, why do they never, you know, launch a Wasp miniseries? Why did Al Ewing write the first ever Wasp book? Because Janet Van Dyne is a destroyed IP, because Marvel, in their infinite wisdom, destroyed the IP, and it's connected together. It's the same way as when DC destroyed Wally West, so Barry Allen Comics didn't sell.
Yeah.
It's the IP got destroyed, and when you do that, every character connected to this IP, like, gets affected. it's not just one character. It's not just Hank Pym. It's not just Wally West. It's everyone around him. And, I think that they got past that with Hank. Like, when you read stuff like West Coast Avengers and even
Yeah.
like the Kurt Busiek and Jeff Johns Avengers eras, like, they got past that. Of course, like, it got worse for a bit because, like, there was a time when Hank was suicidal. I know people
Yes.
forget about that.
I
But there
haven't.
is a
I remember.
panel, yeah, there is a panel in West Coast Avengers when he, like, held a gun to his head and he was gonna shoot.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember that.
so, like, it was definitely a wild time, but Marvel right now doesn't want to address it because, if you defend Hank Pym and mental illness, you'd be supporting, spousal abuse. But if you support
Yeah.
spousal abuse, then you are disrespecting mental illness and you don't care about other people. And, it became a weird situation that there is no out of, really,
Yeah. Yeah.
except, growing balls, honestly. That's the out of it.
Well, then that's never going to happen with
Yeah.
in the current structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
think as I was saying, it happened and we got it well. But then what happened was our favorite creator, Chuck Austin, took over Avengers for 15. Yeah, yeah, he took over Avengers for 15 issues before Bendis. And in that, he was like, Chuck Austin, I respect the guy. He's a great guy, but, he puts himself in the story way too much. And
yeah,
that's
it's one of
why,
the flaws.
yeah, like, that's why he took a lot of things personally. Like, I know some people who used to work at Wizard Magazine and other magazines, and they're like, when you talk to Austin and criticize his runs, he get personally angry to the point that you can't interview him anymore. And the reason is that he never wrote the characters.
Yeah.
When he was writing Nurse Annie, and Havoc, he was not writing Nurse Annie. He was writing his mother and himself. And, he would, in his mind, he would wish that he had have, that stepdad who cares for him and cares for his mother. And, he pictured that as Havoc. So when someone would interview him and would criticize that because, they're Havoc fans and they saw the destruction of the character Havoc, he would take it as an insult to himself and his
Yeah,
mother.
he took it personally. Yeah.
Yeah. And, that ended up destroying a lot of characters. And one of those characters was Hank because, he represented Hank Pym. Like, he didn't write Hank Pym. He wrote his father, his biological father, and his issues with his biological father.
Yeah.
So what happened is that, he, like, ignored all of the development that Hank had, like, in West Coast Avengers and under Busiek and Johns. And he was like, okay, Janet cheated on Hank. That destroyed Hank mentally. And, that run is forgotten. But the thing about it that's not forgotten is that at the same time, Mark Millar was retelling the Trial of the Yellow Jacket storyline in Ultimates. And, like, what makes the people remember the events of the Austin run, even though they don't remember that Austin didn't write Avengers, is that Brian Michael Bendis used those events to kickstart Disassembled. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but the affair that Wasp had with Hawkeye, it caused her to not have her period, and that's why she was talking to Wanda, and she talked about how she thought that she was pregnant, and then it slipped her that she mentioned Wanda's kids, and that's what led to Disassembled and House of M. So
that
it's
was
not
a weird, quite a domino there.
So, like, the events of the Chuck Austin run are not remembered for themselves, but what happened because of them, as well as the adaptation of or the retelling of the Trial of the Yellow Jacket storyline in Ultimates, reinforced all of the terrible ideas and set the characters of both Hank Pym and Janet a lot back. Like, it set them back. And, after that, you just couldn't get them to do anything right. You get writers here and there trying to fix things, but it always gets back to, we can't use these characters anymore. I think that in a funny situation, when they announced the Jean Grey series by Dennis Hopeless, someone at the con, when they announced that, asked them about a Hank Pym solo or what are they trying to do with Hank Pym. And the editor on the books told him that Hank Pym is an irredeemable villain who slapped his wife and can't have a comic. And, at the time, it was kind of weird because you're announcing a book about a character who committed genocide. So, like, it's a messy situation,
It is messy, but it can be managed. It really can. And this kind of comes back to, when you've written bad stuff, and when I've tried to write X-Men fan fiction years ago, it was very myopic and very short-sighted. I learned very early on that when you start a story, things change a lot. Like you could outline a story all you want. Like years ago, I think I don't even know if I still have this file on my computer. I outlined my own take of the Ultimate X-Men. I outlined 5 volumes. I started writing it within 10 chapters. It was nothing like I expected because if I tried to write it the way I did the outline, it just would not have worked. And I think when you're talking about writing professionally, when you have editors, you have like higher up saying we need to do this, we need to do that. It's hard to marry all those forces. When you're a fan fiction writer, you got no editor except yourself or sometimes a friend. Yeah, it's just, I can say from experience that even if you have a great idea, there's a very good chance it's going to get diluted by multiple forces, some of which are outside your control. And some of these errors that you're describing, like with Hank Pym, with Chuck Austen, and later on with Bendis, they kind of strikes me as the forces were not aligned and some of the influences were messy. There's always going to be a collaborative effort. There's always going to be an issue, marrying all this stuff together. So when it works, it's great. When Bendis did his New Avengers, I loved it. When he did his Ultimate Spider-Man, amazing. One of the best runs ever. And the first House of X Power of 10 with Hickman, masterpiece, absolute masterpiece. I could say the same thing about what Scott Snyder is doing with an absolute Batman right now. When there's a convergence, it's amazing. It gives us the reasons why comics are what they are.
Yep.
That is, hard to do. It's hard to get everything in line. Right now, DC has more in line than Marvel does. Let's not beat around the bush in that regard.
Absolutely.
But this has happened before. Marvel and DC have kind of flipped fortunes, if you want to call it like that, so much in the past. During like the latter part of the New 52 era, DC was like was a mess. It was hard to follow anything. Like in the mid 2000s, when Marvel had New Avengers going on, they were firing on all cylinders. They were doing well. That's when they kind of had a good vision, and it played out from House of X, Civil War, into, I think Avengers versus X-Men is kind of when it started getting a little, when it started going off. I know that's when the Disney merger happened, but but even before that merger, there was a sense that, some things were starting to get a little to unravel. And having followed comics as long as I have, I could go back and look. Yeah, this is when this was working. This is when this is working. I can tell when this was a turning point. Like I can tell there's a clear difference between when Jeff Loeb was writing comics, like in the early 2000s for DC, compared to when he was writing for Marvel in the late 2000s. You can see where things started going wrong.
Absolutely.
I kind of can see signs of that now. It's not going to be till like 5-10 years down the line that it's going to be obvious. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on that matter. But there's one other thing I did want to bring up with still comics related.
Sure.
Marvel Rivals is about to have a new chapter, and it's going to have Cyclops in it. It's going to have Devil Dinosaurs. They're rumored. One of the things I have been doing, I have a Marvel Unlimited subscription. I don't know if it's available where you are.
Yeah.
That service has it's like a Netflix for Marvel comics. That has been really good. They've given us some of these unique. They're kind of like comics made specifically for phones. They have this X-Men tie-in.
Yeah.
That's written by Steve Orlando. They have Marvel Rivals has a tie-in that I think has been fun to follow.
I've read a lot of them. I think the Alex Packnell did some of them early from the Ashes era.
Yes.
And then we started one like in the Krakoan era.
Yeah, X-Men Green. That was X-Men Green.
Yeah.
It was kind of a novelty then. I wasn't really sure about it then, but as I've gone back and read them now, I think that could be a new avenue. I like what that's been doing. That's kind of a different way of reading comics. I mean, there's always going to be like room for trade paperbacks, but that has been a good experience. But you could kind of tell that Marvel isn't putting a lot of energy into it right now. The stories are still kind of general.
Yeah.
They're not really bold or ambitious. I think getting to a point where they are where this might be more the future than what we what we got. I mean, I don't know if you remembered Comixology. Digital comics are not as, if you get them through Amazon, they're not as user friendly as they used to be. And I think if Marvel wants to embrace the digital medium, that might be a sign of things to come, because
Yeah.
it's getting harder to. It's not the early 2000s anymore. The nature of the industry is changing so much, and that's not even beginning into what AI might do. We could maybe do a podcast about that in the future.
Sure.
But I have thoughts on that. I'm actually working on a video for it. But at some point, I think the way the Marvel and DC are kind of presenting comics, they're using a model that needs to adapt. And if they don't adapt soon, then they're going to be left behind by other media. It's just, yeah. They're not competing against movies anymore. They're not competing against other books. They're competing against like TikTok. They're competing against YouTube. They're competing against like
Everything.
Streaming services. The VR is starting to develop. And another reason I brought up Rivals.
Yeah.
There are more daily users for Marvel Rivals than there are sales of Marvel's best-selling comic book.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's not a trivial thing, and that's something that I think they're aware of. They just don't know how to manage it yet.
Yeah. I think that the problem with Marvel when it comes to sales is that they don't think about anything beyond the approach that they had during the early 2000s. And, that's not sustainable anymore. Like a lot of people that pirate comics, like we talk about pirating comics a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of them actually have the means to buy comics, but they don't have, comics available to them, because Marvel Unlimited or DC Infinite, they're not available in those countries.
Yes.
Physical comics are not available in these countries. Try to find a trade when it's out of print. Good luck getting it on eBay. If you're in America, if you're somewhere other than America and some places in Europe, you're never getting it.
Yeah, you're SOL.
Yep. So, like, I don't know what, like, I think, I can't remember if it was Jeremy Adams or some other creator who was like, they went on a read online site and they were like, this comic has more views than the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont X-Men #1. And I'm like, yeah, it does.
I could see that.
Because a lot of people want to read comics, and they do have the means to buy them. It's just that comics are not accessible to them. And when I say they do have the means, I mean they have the money to buy it, but nothing else,
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I get some comics like from whatever stores I find. It's kind of hard to get, but sometimes I get custom made. But like, if I try to get something, the nearest thing that I can get, a comic from is a place in Germany. So I literally have to pay the price of the comic. I have to pay customs. I have to pay delivery.
Yeah.
Which then, like, I think I was talking to Nick about that. I think the new X-Men Omnibus, I was looking at it, wanting to buy it. I think it could have cost me around $600.
That's too much. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, why? Because, I have the means to buy it. Like, it costs what, $150? I have those, but like,
yeah, around that. Yeah, that's kind of what That's usually what a solid omnibus goes for.
Absolutely, I have that. But when you talk about 600, nope. And it's not about me having that, but like, no comic is worth $600.
No. So it's it's a service problem. I mean, I've heard this issue. This issue comes up whenever there's whenever piracy enters the conversation. A lot of times, it's just a matter of service. I mean, piracy, if the service is better, then people are going to gravitate towards it, even if they have the money to buy it legitimately. I mean, this is something that, again, I could probably we could do another podcast about this.
Yep.
But there's a reason why it's so prevalent. There's like no legitimate alternative, and or they stink. For a long time, Comixology, the site that kind of became the hub for all digital comics. It was kind of like the Steam store. I don't know if I don't know if you're into gaming, but Steam, the interface for Steam was very similar to what Comixology had. It was very intuitive. Reading a comic was really easy, and they had these sales that helped you get into things you wouldn't have otherwise gotten into. A lot of extra spending money went into those sales, and I credit Comixology for making me a Kamala Khan fan.
Yep.
Because I distinctly remember that that Wednesday when the new comics came out, I had like a specific comic budget at the time, and for whatever reason, I had some extra. I said, "Oh, new Miss Marvel, I'll buy that," and I just bought it on Comixology. That one issue made me a Kamala Khan, a Miss Marvel fan for life. Can't really. That's not really doable now. If you look at like comic here in the States, at least. Comixology got molded into the Amazon Kindle store. That
Yep.
Kindle store is not made for comics. It's made for regular books. And the sales and all that stuff that I used to be part of the fun of Comixology, it's not there anymore. And the app on my iPad, it doesn't have the right feel to it. And I will say the Marvel Unlimited app is better in that regard compared to Kindle. But yeah, I think after the comics, I think the loss of Comixology and what it had, it essentially it guarantees that piracy is going to be an issue and there's no way to solve it until you solve the service problem.
Yep.
And there doesn't seem to be any energy or any inclination to solve it. It makes me, Disney has never been very good at handling piracy, like at all. DC, Warner Brothers, not much better. Their response is they throw lawyers at the problem. They ignore it.
Yeah.
But
the solution is there and it's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't mention that a lot, but when Disney Plus first launched the first year or so, when we had WandaVision, Falcon, and other stuff, I didn't Disney Plus was not available in Egypt, so I was not subscribed.
Yeah.
But when a year in, Disney Plus became available here, and I subscribed to it. And I'll tell you something ironic. A year subscription is cheaper than how I bought the pirated versions of the shows in the first year. So it was cheaper for me. Like, it's not just Disney making profit, it's me benefiting as well,
Yeah, and but that's the thing about Disney. They have this, and other companies do this. They have this insatiable need to monetize things to a point where it's no longer convenient. If it's a difference between pleasing the shareholders in the next quarter or keeping the product user-friendly, they're always going to favor the shareholders. Like, we need to squeeze more profit to make a line on a chart go up. And
that's true.
It's infuriating because, again, I know Disney is a big publicly traded company. They have to increase value to shareholders, but at some point that's short-term thinking. Long-term, if your products, and whether it's comics, TV shows, movies, if it's too expensive or too inconvenient to access them, then people are going to pirate it, and you will not see a penny from it. Yeah, you get fans. You'll have fans get into it. I mean, we had that happen recently with like that Avatar: The Last Airbender movie that leaked, and that was originally supposed to go on a streaming service, but because it got leaked, and now people say put it in theaters. We want to see it in theaters, and Paramount's like, nah. That's like, you're not listening to your fans. You're not listening to your customers, and then you're surprised when piracy becomes a problem. I mean, what did you expect was going to happen?
And the ironic thing is that I can't remember if those are last year's numbers or 2024 numbers, but basically the revenue comics made for Disney a year or two ago were about $500,000 in revenue.
That's pocket change.
Yeah, I know it's pocket change, but that's just in America and some places in Europe. What if you make Marvel Unlimited, available in the Middle East, available in the other places that it's not available? What if you put the trades out there in demand? I go in, I want to buy this Forgotten Chris Claremont Fantastic Four trade, and you're like, okay, print it for this person and ship it to him. He'll pay for that. That will significantly increase those 500K. Of course, it will still be changed, but when we're talking about Disney, they never consider anything changed. So it's millions. It's still millions. And they, if they wake up and realize that it's millions, they will focus on it,
Yeah, but sometimes if it's between that and pleasing shareholders, they're going to please the shareholders.
Absolutely.
Because, again, we could dedicate an entire podcast to piracy in media, and there's a whole lot there's definitely a lot to be said, but at the end of the day, it's all about convenience and accessibility, and if you don't make it convenient and accessible, people are going to pirate, and you cannot stop it. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Napster. for music. But I
Yeah.
remember, yeah, I remember that, and I honestly liked it compared to because I'm old enough to remember a time when if you wanted to listen to music, you had to go to a record store, buy a
Yeah.
$16 CD, 90s money, and there's a good chance it would have only one halfway decent song on it. Right.
Yeah.
That was a terrible deal. Music companies loved it because they could just make one good song and slap a bunch of trash on it and still charge you $16. And then when Napster comes along, say, hey, here's the music for free. You just want a song? Here's a song. And they thought that their solution to that, sue the user, sue the company, but didn't work. And it wasn't until they made it more convenient, like with Spotify and with Apple Music, which that has made piracy with music a whole lot. It's not nearly as necessary anymore.
Yeah.
Music piracy just is not.
It's not a thing anymore. Like
Yeah,
it is a thing, but not the way it used to.
yeah, it's because it's unnecessary. It's much easier to just get it through Spotify.
Yeah, or even
And-
YouTube.
Yeah, or YouTube. Yeah, it's easier, and it's not, and it's not free. People still have to go through ads. You can still like there's still other ways to monetize that content without being, heavy-handed. But
Yeah.
music was able to do that, and I don't think comics have any excuse. I know it's a little trickier with movies and TV shows, but comics, the barriers are not what they are
Yeah.
compared to other forms of content. And then again, we could probably save AI for another stream. If we can, I would love to dedicate an entire podcast to how that will affect the future of comics.
Absolutely.
But because like it or not, I know there's already been some scandals about artists who have been caught using AI. And there are certain companies like in Japan where if they catch you using AI, they fire you on the spot.
Yeah.
But again, that kind of feels like what happened with Napster, where like there was a time when a band called Metallica, they said, get all our music off of Napster. They did, but that didn't stop Napster, didn't stop piracy, didn't stop any of it. And all that did was was upset fans. So kind of bringing this back to the state of comics, and with generative AI is here. It's not going away. I mean, the quality of AI generated videos is still kind of messy.
Yeah.
It has this uncanny valley effect that's really hard to get around. Same thing but the thing is, comics don't need to have that kind of production quality. Making AI images, it's easy. It's cheap. Someone already made a comic with AI. Back in 2022, technology's gotten a lot better since then. If I know AI has a mixed reputation, has a bad reputation now, but at some point, it's going to affect the comics industry. And if Marvel, DC, Image, they don't get ahead of it, then it's going to spiral. They're not going to be able to control it. I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I can guarantee you people are out there right now who are who want to use AI to turn some of their fan fiction into something real.
Yeah.
Like, again, I've written bad fan fiction. You think I wouldn't want to turn some of those stories, some of those not so bad stories into comics? If I could, I would. And trust me, if I get a chance to try it, I would be interested in at least seeing what could happen, because I don't know, there's a potential there for creatives that aren't bound by editorial staffs. So what's that going to mean for IP? I mean, how are you going to police that? Can you police that? I don't think you can.
No, it's not like you can police that. And the thing is that, AI is bad. Like, we agree as comic book fans that AI is bad and should not be used, but it's here and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And, if the companies don't fix their standards and things, things will be bad for them,
Yeah.
For instance, let's take the example that we have been talking about. If comics are accessible worldwide, you wouldn't need to pay pennies to creators and tell them that, okay, the comic didn't make money, because even if the comic sucks, it will sell better than Absolute Batman is selling right now. Why? Because
Accessibility.
Accessibility. Absolute Batman is accessible to what? Maybe 1 million people. We are 8 billion on this planet.
Yeah. That's money that they're leaving on the table. So it is a situation that's, I don't know what the solution is, given how old I am and what I saw happened with music, what I've seen happen with movies and TV shows, AI is not going away. You can hate
Yep.
it all you want. It's here. And even if you destroyed it now, it'd be recreated by sundown because the technology's there, it's out there, and you can't uninvent it. And it's already affecting other fields. And I think if the other reason to bring up AI is it could, in theory, make distribution and accessibility easier. It really
Yeah.
could. And it could do so in a way that's not nearly as expensive as like hiring a bunch of contractors, which I'm sure, because you got to, companies like Disney and Warner Brothers going to put that money into, they're not going to put money into an effort like that
Yeah.
unless they have to. Businesses do not sink money into an effort that's not going to return a larger profit down the line. AI might be something that helps lower that cost, lower that barrier while increasing accessibility. But again, I don't know what form that's going to take. There's got to be I'm not smart enough to know. If I were, I'd be working at Marvel or DC right now. But there is going to, at some point in the next 5 years, there's going to be a reckoning between AI, piracy, and comics. And it's either going to save the industry or it's going to destroy it. Nothing in between.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this whole issue is that the companies will end up taking the wrong idea and they will start using AI to make comics. And the issue here is that it's to them it's not about comics, Based on what I understand from the legalities, which is not a lot, it's that they keep producing comics to keep the IP so that they can use the IP to make movies and shows.
Yeah.
So they don't care about the sales of comics, they just have to keep producing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that mentality keeps on being a thing, I think that we are gonna go in a multiple directions that are all bad. Like whether
Yes.
using AI for comics, whether replacing artists and writers completely with AI, whether
Yeah.
like you can count many situations that can happen from that. And, none of them are gonna be well for comics.
No, no. And I know they've taken stance. Jim Lee has gone on record as saying DC will never use generative AI. He says that now, but there might come a point where it just would not be profitable. They would not be able to continue without using it. It's like people who resist getting cell phones, or people who
Yeah.
resisted getting computers, or people who resisted getting email. I know some people. I had one professor in college who refused to get a computer. He was like the last person I've met who did not have a computer. Now, he was an old guy too. I'll say that. He was in his 60s. He was stubborn. Don't know if he's still alive. But there are people who will resist until the last possible moment. But when you're a company, and if waiting means costing you money, that's going to change real fast. Because usually when something like this, in the same way that Napster was kind of started by some kid in a college dorm, whatever the future of comics is probably not going to come from somewhere inside Marvel and DC. It's going to come from some fan or some guy with who's really savvy with AI. Again, don't know what form it's going to take, but at some point, Marvel DC Image, they're all going to have to deal with it.
Yeah. And the worst part of it is that they keep saying that we can pay creators because the comics do not make money. Make them
Yeah,
make money. You can
yeah,
make them make way more money than you ever bought. You can make the most boring comic. I don't know what it's like. The most boring comic that no one bought. You can make it make more money than the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont, X-Men easily if just comics are accessible.
yeah. I got 2 words for them:
Yep.
still issue.
Absolutely. All right. I think we're done for today. We
Yeah,
will be back next week. We probably will have a lot to talk about. We have the Punisher
yeah,
special coming up.
yep. Oh yeah, Punisher special.
Yep.
Love it.
And we will have the new comics. Hopefully, Jean Grey is in some Marvel comics. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens with DC Comics. I know I've been trying to get you to read Green Lantern recently, and it's because
Yeah.
Green Lantern is doing what we both would want to see with Cyclops and Jean Grey in a long
Mhm.
we've wanted to see that in a long time. And I'm enjoying reading Green Lantern. I love the franchise as a it's near and dear to my heart, but also it's doing something that I'm missing in X-Men.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. But yeah, the past 3 weeks for me have sucked. So I haven't had a lot of time to
Read comics?
read more than I already do. Like
Yeah.
Wednesday mornings are kind of like the time I carve away for comics. I have a hard time finding other additional time, but I will. I'll try to make time. I should have more time later this summer.
Yeah.
By the way, just in the chat, I posted the link to the video of my Inhumans versus X-Men video in case anyone wants to see that.
In our chat here on.
Yeah, no, in the studio chat.
Okay, well, allow me a moment. Oh, yeah, found it.
Yeah,
All right.
just add that to the description, and
Sure.
people can see a little bit more what I'm talking about. But yeah, thanks a lot
You're welcome.
for this. I've got some other videos coming out down the line. I'm still working on some comics related stuff. I will try to I'll try to discuss that with you at a future podcast. But right now, yeah, I'm just kind of trying to catch up after the last few weeks, and I'm still behind, but I'll get there.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us.
Yes.
Follow us on all social media. You can where you can find us, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great
All right.
week.
Take care and stay safe.